Tonight's presenters really don't need much of an introduction. They are the co-owners of Go Kayaking, and they've been providing services to Siska members for a long time, and they've done previous presentations. But Yves and Patti are well known to so many people in our organization, so would you please come on up?
Thank you for having us. This is nice to be back here again. I think it's our third presentation we've had. I don't count them anymore. So the trip we're going to show is a trip we did this summer, or last summer, from Prince Rupert to Port Hardy. And we paddled the outer coast. That's the challenge we wanted to do versus the inside passage. It was a 42-day trip. And we had with us, Patti and I, and my nephew from Montreal. That was only his second time in a kayak. And the first time he was in a kayak was 5 years ago with us. He came and visited his uncle. Surprise, I'm on the ferry visiting you, okay? And we took him around Solander the first time. So that's twice in a kayak, Solander, North Brooks, and the North and Central Coast. All right, let's do that.
So, as just at the very beginning, it says the other side. So we made a joke about it. We didn't want to keep saying the outside, so this is a trip all about the other side. Oh,
yeah. So we'd like to think, well, that trip doesn't happen without being helped by, whoops, just lost it. So, that's him. Okay, there you go. I got to go back. That thing is upside down, is it? I got my own. Oh, there you go. Okay. So, Christine and Robert for your hospital in Prince Rupert. Steve at Prince Rupert's Kayaking for transportation. Alan, Nadia, Elizabeth for information. We have another Siska member who helped us out. That was very important for us. The BC ferry staff was amazing for helping out with the kayaks and everything. It was fantastic. I've called BC Marine Trail and at North Coast 12 Backpacker Hostel in Port Hardy. That's where we stayed. The staff at Shearwater Post Office for our food, because we had our box sent to Shearwater for a food drop-off. Jason at Dryad Lighthouse near Bella Bella for the rubber gloves. We'll talk to you about that later.
That's my story.
The Nanaimo paddlers who wrote the booklets about different places to stay on the outer coast. Louise for the camera, we'll talk about that. Anne and Sylvia for looking after our house. We're gone for, what, 2 months? 3 months? Anyway. And of course, Mother Nature. You know, without Mother Nature, we couldn't have done that. So if you're planning to do a trip like that, of course, long crossings. So we're looking at 6, 7, 8, 9 nautical miles. We're looking at 3+ hours in your boat sometimes, depending on conditions. So that is going to happen. It's not, it is, it's a fact. You got to cross channel. Big tide differential. We're looking 20 feet, 21 feet high, and about 2, 3 feet low. So we got 20 foot to 21 foot tide differential. Number of tent sites available. If you go to a tent site and you're a group of 5, Jenny, sometimes it's very tough to put more than 1 or 2 tents at some places. And the distance between campsite. That means when you leave your campsite, there's no options. You have to make it to the next one. And sometimes the distance can be very long. Long carries comes with the tide, right? If you sleep a bit longer, the tide is gone, right? A sea state, of course, swell, surf, currents, wind waves. Finding water, we'll talk about that. Especially we had a dry summer where we were, so it was a bit of a challenge. Rugged shoreline for landing, hot, cold, sunny, rainy, and windy days. And weather days and down days. Okay, so there's days that Mother Nature tells you you are not paddling. But there are days that you want to take because it's beautiful and you want to stay longer just to visit the area.
Those are the days when Patti told Yves, we're not paddling.
So this is my nephew, 28-year-old electric engineer. called us. He did a trip 5 years ago with us around the Brooks Peninsula. He was young, foolish, 5 kids in a van, going across Canada. You know, you probably have done that for some of you here. So he called us in December. Anyway, he says, you know, I really enjoyed the trip I did 5 years ago. If you do another one, if it's possible, I would like to join. I say, yeah, but no, you're a working engineer now. He says, I hate my job, I'm going to quit. He has that option. That's how good he is. Everybody wants him anyway. So, we'll think about it. So, February, he calls back again. You know, when I told you about that trip, so, oh man, it's annoying, but we don't know yet. And Patty and I wanted to do that trip, but COVID happens, 2020. So we kind of postponed it, but we wanted to do it this summer, but we weren't. In March,
We weren't ready to commit, and
Yeah.
that's part of our issue is the dates. And I was like, yeah, we'll probably do something, but we didn't want to commit. And so when he called about it, we didn't really talk, and the next day I just said, okay, let's commit, let's do it. And because he needed more time to plan everything, so he was the catalyst to get us to do this trip. We were going to, but we had to commit.
so we were not sure if he could do it. You know, he's like I said, he's never paddled other than the first trip. But that's what he told me that convinced me. He says, when I'll be old, I won't remember the project I was working on as an engineer in 2023, but I'll never forget the kayak trip I did with my uncle. How can you say no to that? I was like, now he's got to come. Anyway, so we told him, yeah, and he was excited, and then we kind of made things happening because we now committed, right? Want to talk about that one? All right, so we started in Prince Rupert, and like you can see, where's the pointer on that? Right here. So we did the outer coast from Porcher Island, Banks, Estevan Group. We cut in the middle of Estevan Group to go to Campania because it's a beautiful area. Then we came back on the outside of Aristizabal, Price, Calvert, of course, Cape Caution, and to Port Hardy. So 42 days, 22 from Prince Rupert to Shearwater, 20 from Shearwater to Port Hardy, about 800 kilometers or 400 something nautical miles. So yes, you could do it faster, but Patty and I carried in our boat 30 days of food anyway, so we had enough food to stop and enjoy the show, right?
Yeah, for the first part of the trip, we wanted to make sure we had enough food, so it was how much food can we pack, and we got 30 days, and we said, if we don't need it, we get there to Shearwater sooner, great, but if not, because we were going to an area we hadn't been before, we're going, let's be prepared, let's plan for the weather that you know you can get, the sea state you know that you can get. So all along that coastline, if you think of most of the exposed area, conditions could happen at most of the places, and especially with the long crossings, you're needing a bit more of the weather to be with you and in your favor. That doesn't always happen. So at the end, from the whole trip that we did, there's a wind wave there and there, the two spots. Those were the only areas that we really had conditions that we had to pay attention to.
But it was less than an hour paddling.
Yes, okay, yeah.
When we hit the condition, within half an hour to 1 hour, conditions are gone. Okay? So on 42 days, we had 40 days, sea states 1 meter or less. That's it.
Why do you think I said, thank you, Mother Nature?
All right, go ahead.
So we started in Port Edward, just south of Prince Rupert. First day, well, actually, this was technically our second day, because our first day, we took the first down day in Prince Rupert because it was just raining. We got off the ferry at midnight and just pouring rain. So our first day was in the rain. We get to, this was our plan, so plans are always meant to change. This was supposed to be our first camp spot. It was not far. We just thought, well, we'll set up, regroup, you know, get out.
3 miles. 3 miles from Port Edward.
Yeah, we just wanted a short day for the first one and set up. Well, it was rainy. It was cool. So first thing we said is, let's keep paddling. And we went a little further to Refuge Bay.
Yeah, so a 3 nautical mile came out to be a 17 nautical mile day.
And in that, when the weather came, the rain stopped, we set up dry, and that was kind of the story of most of our trip from then. So I won't keep elaborating, but you'll see a lot of great weather. We did have some bad weather, but not so much. Here was the only established camp spot on Portrait that we're at. Everything else would have been just more of a rough camping. On this, from here was nice as we decided to take it easy and stay on the inside and explore and just get into the paddling mode. And on the outside here, this was the outside in the evening, so we walked through to the other side just to enjoy an evening and take a look at the West Coast and what it's supposed to be like. And just a beautiful evening. We explored, and this is one of the most amazing trees I've ever seen, just in terms of the twisted bark, and just by wandering and exploring. So we always try to give ourselves time to stop and smell the roses and check out the forest. Speaking of stopping and smelling the roses, well, in this case, I'm stopping and waiting for our first boat repair.
So we're in a bit of not rough seas, but waves, and Etienne, trying to brace, and it's like, wow, he doesn't look very stable, but he's holding on. So we stop for a break, and we start chatting about conditions and how he feels, and well, he says, I was doing fine, but says the boat that holds my rudder pedal is coming off, so I had to push with my feet and keep the whole plug while I'm paddling because water's coming in. So, and we're like, good size wave, right? So he said, that's why I kind of felt that he says, why didn't you tell us? Right? So we stopped, and Penny's there holding the boats while we're on shoreline where there's not a whole lot of shoreline. I got all the tools and we had the boat, so we fixed everything. It took about half an hour maybe to fix it. But he was like, you have to tell us that. And he was paddling like that for a while with his foot, trying to keep that and paddling and not having water coming in his boat. Like, come on.
And this day was one of the rough days where we had 1+ meter seas. We had the swell, we had some wind against us, we had the currents. So it was challenging for Etienne in many more ways than just us.
So this is going towards Joachim Point. So that's the point. It's a surf landing beach, an exposed beach. And this is the beach at low tide. So you can see the rock wall that it extends all the way out. So when you come to that beach at mid-tide like we did, rock pops out as the wave goes in because there's so many rocks. And Etienne was like, which one's going to come at me? Like, you don't know. And then whoop, something pops out, the water goes down, and then it's deep, and then so it was a challenge to land there. But going out at low tide, you have to go all the way around. It's so far out. It's just crazy, but you got to do it, right? So where we are, keep going on the coast. Now we're getting closer to Banks Island, Aquin Rocks, and we go to the Aquin campsite, like they call it Island, which is nice. Once again, think about tide differential, long carry. And Patty's gonna tell you the story about that one.
So here we are figuring, okay, we generally like to not get up too early, and we like to, we'll just go with the times and see how we're feeling. So the first few days we were just adjusting to the group and time-wise. And then in this one we said, okay, we've got to get up a little earlier. And so we gave Etienne, I don't even think we gave him a call. And from past experience with him, he could get up and be ready before we could. So we were like, okay, he's sleeping, but he's going to be fine. So we set up our boats. We set them up where I'm standing, and below that is a rock wall, so there's a man-made fish trap. And fine, and we're ready to go, and it's like, well, where is Etienne?
And the water is now not past. It's like we timed it to go out without having to carry the boat, right?
So we found out from this day on, I gave Etienne a wake-up call every morning going, "Bon matin, monsieur." And if I didn't hear from him, I was at his tent. So he had fallen asleep again.
We missed the window.
And this is just another, just in terms of showing on the tides. We stopped here for a lunch. But just weird, this is the kind of things you saw between the low, mid, and high tides. But the conditions, this is what we were getting, and this was, now we're just going to, we're at the north end of Banks Island.
So here's the conditions at the end of nowhere. That's it. Okay. So from a distance, this is Bonilla Island, which is the farthest island on the coast before the Charlottes.
So paddling through that area, it was like being in a aquarium. We could see everything below us. It was so calm. The waters were beautiful. And as we went up and down through the different rocky areas, there was a lot of islets. It was just spectacular. And this was Banks Island. We're going, wow. We're just going to say thank you to Mother Nature.
This is on the west side of Banks Island, where it's supposed to be rough and tough, but it's pretty cool. And here, Bonilla Island, right there. Still very, very nice conditions.
So good enough conditions that we could have considered going around Bonilla Island, but we didn't.
So we're going to feel sorry for the people who did that trip many times and had rough condition. We're probably going to have their tires slashed on the truck on the way out because unfortunately we don't have scenes of violence with Mother Nature because we didn't have any. So along the way there's different campsites, and this one of the campsites we could have considered, but this is what we got. See here. Look at that moss. And on a high tide, there would have been no place to camp. So we had to pass that campsite.
Just the paddling conditions and the rocks, it was just beautiful. So now we get to another lovely spot. We did have to move logs. It was very easy to set up, but we were able to find some spots and soaked in the sun.
So that campsite on high tide, there's no beach, there's only logs. So it says in the book, you're going to have to move logs and make your own campsite to be able to camp there. So we just kept going. So these are the conditions we had on the west side, mid of Banks, where it's supposed to be 300 swells and waves and stuff. Yeah, this is not in Victoria. This is at the end of nowhere.
What month was it?
Right?
What month?
This was end of June, and again, I think we had horseshoes because people with knowledge said it's better to be paddling in this area in July, and you're going to probably get a lot of rain and conditions.
So another great spot, but no, you cannot camp. This is low tide, so good for breaks, but when you look at the campsite possibility, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, our biggest challenge was really the tides and finding campsites above high tide that would work. This one has a bit of a story. If anyone had seen, I guess, I lost my camera here, and we had this. You can see that there's a bit of fog in the background there. This was supposed to be just a lunch spot, and we came up and ended up spending the night. The fog came in quite thick, and so we decided we would spend the night and then head out early the next day. And we had a bit of mist in the morning, a little bit of drizzle, and I took a picture, and then instead of putting it in my PFD like I always do, I just stuck it underneath my map chart because I didn't want it to get wet. And I didn't clip it on. So we find out 2 hours later when I go, or an hour later when I go to take a picture, the camera's gone. I went, oh, it's somewhere down the sea. A month later, some friends, group from Nanaimo paddlers, are doing a similar trip. They camped in the exact same spot. And when we got home, when they got home, we got an email from Louise, said, "Did you lose a camera?" I found one. And it still worked, and all the pictures from the 7 days that I had taken was still there.
So the camera was dropped on the shoreline, so it's been in the ocean, like tides in and out. Brought it home, got the card, got the picture, and I'm still using the camera.
What's the camera?
It's a Panasonic TS5, the old TS5, the orange one, and I'm still using it to this day.
So this is the last picture my camera took of the trip.
So Terror Point, south of Banks Island. So, you know, we have Calamity, Terror, Caution, Cape Caution. Alan talks about that in the presentation, the name that, you know, makes you like, oh no, I'm gonna die. So we're at that point, which is renowned as being, you know, a point that, you know, and this is what we got.
We are currently hugging the point.
Retake.
We are actually hugging the shoreline of Terror Point. Check this out. Pretty impressive, eh?
Terror Point.
And the bottom of this pond.
So today, the day that we were there was no terror in Terror Point.
So we went around outside, great, and then there's a lot of channel that goes inside, but usually you can't because of the swell, it's rough and tough. So this is, next video, is inside Terror Point. It was a tough trip.
Just look at the rocks as well. It was a gorgeous area. So the fact that we decided to stay and wait for the fog, I'm so glad, because we ended up having a phenomenal morning going along this coastline.
So we're going around Terror Point. We're able to hug inside and rock garden and do whatever we want, but we still had fog. And at the south tip of Banks Island is called Calamity Bay. So this is us. Calamity Bay.
This is Calamity Bay, south of Banks Island. We're getting closer to the Calamity Bay campsite, navigating in the fog.
So our intentions were really not to show or to have enough footage for video on this. It started because we just couldn't believe our luck. And then one video crossing to another, to another, to another. And we thought, oh, you know, we have a slideshow/video presentation here.
So the Nanaimo booklet, this is the campsite they use for high tide because everything is, you have no choice, you have to go and stuck yourself to the trees there. But there's another beach further down. If the tides are not maxed, you can actually go there, and it's not rocky, it's way nicer, and there's a river that flows with fresh water. So that's where, because of the timing, we were able to go to that place versus trying to hop over the rocks and get the campsite.
And this was our first down day, and we had down days and weathers days, and this was a down day. I was like, okay, day 9 or something, let's stop. And we hung up the hammocks, and that's what you do on a down day.
So the next day we crossed the other channel. So I got my dry top, dry pants. I'm fully equipped because, you know, it was so hot. No kidding. I had to stop in the middle of the channel. They helped me take the drive. I was paddling in a t-shirt at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. around other channel that were warm for some channels. It's going to be rough, there'll be a lot of currents, there's going to be standing waves, blah, 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 blah.
Crossing Otter Channel on a Monday morning, 8:15 a.m., dead calm. What a good conditions to go across that channel.
We're sorry.
This is middle of Otter Channel. Check this out. Between Banks and Trutch Island.
You can hear it in Yves' voice. He's getting a little cocky with Mother Nature, isn't he?
And what Betty and I were telling him, this is, that's going to come and bite us. There's no way. We went over Banks, dead calm. It says, it's going to happen. It never happened.
He just gave it away. So this is with Campania in the background. We had come through, with Campania in the background. We were going to we were going to plan a shorter day here, but the conditions were so good. We had this crossing, good afternoon, and usually the wind does pick up a bit in the afternoon. Beautiful crossing right through. It was another almost a heat wave crossing. It was the hottest day of our trip. When we landed, full on, went for a swim. This was an evening around 8:30, I think, 9 o'clock at night, super warm. And it was so warm, Etienne went, I think I'm going to try sleeping in the hammock today. He didn't have to, we had plenty of beach space, but it was super, super weather.
I know some of you have been to Campania, so Alan and Morley, probably Morley?
What about the bugs?
Zero.
No, not here anyways. We've had bugs, but
Zero.
not here.
No bugs, no bear, nothing.
So Etienne is a fisherman on the river back home, but he had never fished in the ocean. And he got his first crash course on fishing from a couple of friends, well, people we met on this island. Here's the rock group.
We were like the rock band. But,
So we had a down day, and Terry and John are two buddies that they originally are from Ketchikan, and they're rowing. They were rowing from Washington to Ketchikan this summer, and we shared a couple of days with them here, and all their fishing knowledge to Etienne. He just found everything out about fish and such.
so last year, this guy tried to make it, same thing, Washington to Ketchikan. The one on the left had a heart attack in the middle of Cape Caution, got extracted, but the Coast Guard and everything. And then that was their second year coming back. So when we're at the post office in Shearwater, they kept their food for a year. So their food was still there waiting for them for this year from the previous year.
And we heard the story from the post office, and then we met them. Very cool. So we had heard that this was a lovely spot to stop, so we had planned another short day just to cross over. It was drizzly, a little misty, and when we got there we went, no, let's keep paddling. Then Etienne also became quite the navigator, but here we kind of, okay, where are we, you guys? So just a little bit of
Well, you know, somebody says, if you don't have a plan, you can't be lost. Right? So Anderson Island is Aristizabal North on the west side. Beautiful view. And this is the high tide. So we really had to look at the tide height and determine, can we make it or not? And we didn't get flooded. It never happened, but sometimes we had to get out and wait until the high tide comes in and go to bed at midnight or whatever to make sure that we were okay.
yeah, and this one we did get out of our tents, and it was right by the log.
That's from before, and that's after.
And there was a little bit of room in the forest there. There was their cabin in the background, but we figured from the last tide line that we'd be okay. But set the alarms just to make sure. And this is in the middle of Aristizabal, where there was a lot of camping in the woods, beautiful wood camping, not a lot of beach. And this is just being one with nature here, and we set up a tent spot as well. But the other thing about the forest is you got to look what's around you. We were on the beach and we heard this loud crash, and it was like, oh. And then we didn't see the tree and where it fell, but after that Yves went back, looked where we set up our tent. I think I'm going to move it, because we looked up above us and there was a few precarious looking branches and trees up that way. So here again, this is now the morning. We're heading out for another low tide start.
So this is the trip that's the trip that we get up at 4 in the morning the most, or all the trip we've did. Because if you miss it, it's a long carry. So you got to go with the tide.
This was just a pit stop, but a lovely spot where you can camp. And I would say, yeah, with the early mornings, we really did start enjoying those early mornings, which anyone who had ever paddled with us before wouldn't think that we would ever do, but we were on the water by 7 many times. And this is another fishing day. We had a down day, so fishing, and just enjoyed it. This was us choosing just, yeah, let's chill. It's a beautiful area, and that's it.
And you can look up online, Kayak Bill was a guy that paddled the area. Anyway, but the Kayak Bill site, usually they have inland sites, so you don't have to worry about getting stuck on a high tide. And these sites, we were actually in the woods, so it was okay. We could sleep at night without that, is that we're going to get flooded or not?
This was an early morning crossing.
So Patty says, or Etienne, where are we going? It says, follow the sun. And then we followed the sun across. And, made to Higgins.
So this fellow was another person who had something to do with Shearwater Post Office. Instead of having his food sitting waiting for him, he made it there before his food. And he waited. And he waited, I think, 2-3 days, and then he went, okay. So I think it was just a little bit bad timing. So along the way, he did pack up as much food that he could get from the general store.
Junk food,
you know, but
sealed stuff, you know.
But if you think about how much effort you ever put into if you're doing camping food, and he didn't have it, so he arranged to get it shipped to Prince Rupert, because he was going on his own doing a solo trip to Alaska. And along the way we found out, not just us, but others who met up with him, gave him a couple of days here, a couple of days there. He had food, but it wasn't going to be enough, and so as he met people, we gave him an IKEA bag, we lent him some charts.
He didn't have charts, he was only using his phone to navigate. I know.
He made it.
He made it because we got the chart back to the mail, so we knew he's alive.
And the Higgins passage, again, the forest was just beautiful. We needed to be out only at noon because of high tide, so we were debating about a down day or not, and we ended up having a down day. So that's what we do. We hang out, explore. And the reason we wanted a later tide, we wanted a higher tide, because on Price there are rocks, islets, different, all protected, but you're out there on the outside, but you've got this really good protection. We had one down day, weather day before this, because we had 2+ meter swell, and we didn't want to chance it. Then we waited for the higher tides, and you wouldn't know the sea state was. It was about 1.5, or it was 1+ meter swell on this particular day, except for a couple of the exposed areas. Other than that, inside, and you could weave your way through it. It was beautiful paddling. Probably one of the nicest areas of paddling, but not so nice for camping.
So there's 3 campsites on Price. There's one, Higgins, that we saw on top. There's this one in the middle, and there's one at the bottom. But after that, you have to do a long crossing. So you have to position yourself to be able to have enough time to cross on the other side the next day. So that campsite is a bit too high up to go around Price South and cross. So we did stop to check it out, and of course, there was no place to camp. Like, it was not possible. So we said, so we have to make it now to the camp, which is south of Price, which is described as a maybe possible campsite.
Yeah, and this one we could have camped with our hammocks, but it was too far, it wasn't far enough south. And so this is where you could see we were going in and out, and we did get some exposure. And our roughest half hour, 45 minutes maybe, was along that stretch where we had to pop out and go in and around, out and about.
So we're now South Price, and we're there at 7 p.m. It was a long day, and this is what we had to deal with.
Here we are, trying to find a campsite on Price. No place. We're going to have to bushwalk and try to set up camp for nights. That shoreline is definitely not inviting. So we'll see what we can do for tonight.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. I wanted to show you the spot. Let's see. You see that tent where the tent is? I'm going to play the view one more time. Okay, this one. No, come on. Okay, why you do that to me? Okay, I know we're going to do the play, but come on. Okay, why is it choking on me like this? All right, here we go. Let's see what that's doing. Look at that little spot on the right
Trying
corner.
to find a campsite on Price. No place. We're going to have to bushwalk and try to set up camp for nights. That shoreline is definitely not inviting. So we'll see what we can do for tonight.
Right there?
It is
That was it.
almost 7 p.m. It's going to be a very interesting night.
So Etienne had to cut branches and make a place for his hammock. And that spot was just enough for Patty to squeeze in her tent and sleep, but the tide. So that's where we set up, and Etienne was on the right corner. And at night, the tide came up. So we got up at 2 in the morning, and our boat were a little bit floating. So we have to adjust the boat, because when the tide comes out, the boat comes down, and it could fall off a rock, or slides, or get damaged, right?
And there's the spot where Etienne is into the
Etienne is
woods.
right here.
What's below him, look at the water there. And this picture with where his kayak is, the next one, okay, that's our tent. And we had to walk through the rocks to get to our kayak. That's where his was. This was definitely the ugliest camp spot we had.
This is the day I said, God, I wish I had a plastic boat.
And then, so then we thought, okay, great, we'll get up in the morning and we'll go. There was no water. And then it was 10 o'clock, there was no water.
11 o'clock,
No water.
Noon, no water. 1 p.m. the water start coming at 1 p.m. But we have to go to Langford Cove and then do a big crossing after that. It's already 1:30 p.m.
The fog came up and this was one of our possible options. But when we got there the next day, it wouldn't have been much better, so.
Crossing Millbank to Sound to Dallas Island. Now we're going towards Bella Bella, Shearwater. We're crossing to civilization. Dallas. Beautiful condition, once again. Cockle Bay. Had a break there.
Steve, was Dallas Island a good campsite?
Yes.
Campsite. It's a kayak build site. Okay, so Horse Point, we're now 6 miles from Shearwater. We're not that far. So in the morning, about 4 a.m., I'm sleeping, I hear a boom. like, you know, when they're mining and doing explosion, when they're blasting. So, okay, we're in civilization, there must be a mine, so I'm blasting, boom, 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 boom. So I get up and look on the right corner, okay?
This is from from the beach, and Yves heard it, and it was our wake-up call from the tent. The whale breached, at least 4 or 5
Yeah, we
times,
saw it many times.
but he got the last one, and then it cleared out of the bay. But look how close he was in the bay.
Maybe.
Did you get that?
So when we paddle the coast, wherever we go, we make a point to stop and talk to the lighthouse keeper. There are eyes, we radio them for weather, for sea state conditions, so we stopped at Dryad Island and chat with Jason, and he gave us a tour of the lighthouse. It was very nice.
Now we've made it to Shearwater. It was really quiet in the town, and we were like, well, where can we put our kayaks? I said, well, you can bring them right up on this dock. And so we ended up leaving them there the whole time, picked up our food. So here, Etienne and I are going to get the food pickup, and we're planning to carry on the next day. But
So now we're 3, and suddenly, like Back to the Future, he's gone.
then there was 2.
There are only the 2 of us.
So we picked up the food, fuel, all ready to go for the next day, and Etienne had a contact with his partner, and surprise, not real surprise, but yes, very surprised, she's pregnant, and he says, I gotta go home, because they've been trying for a couple of years, and he goes, I'm leaving the trip, and we were like, oh my gosh, we met for a beer and dinner, and then he was like, I'm gone. And he made his way from Shearwater back home, back to Montreal, and they're expecting March 6th.
So the next set of slides is from Shearwater down to Port Hardy. Smaller distance, but because we went around many, many islands and stuff like that, it still took us 20 days, right?
And now it was just the 2 of us.
So
And
carrying the boat was tougher.
And-
Missing a set of young, steady, strong kids that can save us if something happens, right? So we stopped at Bella Bella.
Yeah, so I was, second half of the trip, my hands started acting up on me, and I was in search for a pair of rubber gloves so I could at least protect them from some of the dampness. Shearwater was out. We go to Bella Bella. The store is closed because the ferry's coming in. So I said, oh, well, I guess I'm going to just have to suck it up. And then we're going by dry, and I said, wow, let's stop at Jason. Let's see if Jason has any. And I said, this is going to be a really weird request, but do you happen to have a pair of rubber gloves I could have? And he came to my rescue, and my hands thanked him for the rest of the trip. So
That sounds familiar for some of you here that's been there. So we didn't stay in the cabin, but you know, it's always nice to check it out just in case we needed to come back to the weather.
there was good camping in that area. We could put many tents in that area too. Now we're back out and carrying on down the coast.
Rough Cape Swain, as you can see.
Now we saw not 1, not 2, not 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but 12 fishing boats from the fishing lodge, which was just down in the next bay. So Yves said, he goes, we could never be any more safer than right now if something happens.
So that is not fresh water, that's the Yaklili Lagoon that on low tide it drains back into the ocean. But yeah, it's an interesting differential of tide if you look at the height of the Dover Fall.
Just a nice grassy, soft camp spot. We were very pleased with this one.
So we're on the ferry going to Prince Rupert and around, what's the lighthouse there? Meredith is there. Pine Island. There's that tugboat pulling, I would call it a big ass house.
That's what we called it.
And it's, wow, this guy must be rich. His house is being moved somewhere. Anyway, we're going around and look what I found on the cove. And he says, were you the guys in June that, I said, yep, that's us. And they were pulling that fishing lodge to the King Pacific Lodge down to Diaco, where we ended up to paddle by and see it. It was like, oh my God. So to move that up there, one section of it, $110,000 from Port McNeil.
And it was the roof that Yves recognized. He says, that's the same building, I'm sure of it. And it was. So we went around Cape Martin. It's just another area.
Rough area.
Another beautiful area, actually. The paddling on the inside of here, Yves said it was probably some of the nicest paddling, or just pretty. It was just very quiet and very beautiful. So we had run into a couple of groups of people now from Shearwater that were doing some paddling in the area. And they were around the area at Cape Marks to camp. And we went, we're going to keep looking. And we found this little spot. We thought with the tides, we could make it work. And this is in the morning, so we called it Patti and Yves Beach because it had no name. And this was probably one of my favorite spots because you do all this homework looking for places, beforehand. And then when you find one unexpected, it was just very, very, very sweet.
So if you ever taken a course with me, or ask me, I says, my rule is if it doesn't fit in the kayak, it doesn't come. Now I have a bag on top of my deck. So I broke my own rule, but here's why. We were told that because you're going mid-June, the summer up north comes a little bit later because it's near Alaska, so July, August is the best time, so you might have a lot of rain, which we didn't have. So that bag is the tarp and the ropes. So if it's pouring rain, I don't have to open my hatch and pull it out. So everything we need to build a shelter is in that bag. So regardless the weather, if it's pouring rain, I don't have to open my hatch to reach my gear to put up a tarp and, So that's why I have it there. And if it's wet because of the rain or the dew, it's not going wet in the kayak. It stays wet in the dry bag. And actually, this is the driest compartment of the whole kayak. As funny as it is.
And if you can't see faces, we were both fully covered a lot of this time just because of the sun.
It was too hot
Very
and
warm.
too sunny.
So we were quite covered up. Found a nice little spot here, and evening sun, and just playing around. Right behind me, you might see that there's a part of the kayak. This was where a lovely low tide landing, but we had to make a path, and we moved a whole bunch of rocks and boulders. Yeah, we made our own, so we could actually put the kayaks flat. But hey, it was high and dry.
So beautiful, basically from Shearwater down to Port Hardy, it's a very nice paddling area, beautiful paddling area.
We are crossing from Guano Rocks here over to the McMillan Group.
Tough again.
Dead calm. Sea state 0. And we have some otters over here in the kelp. Must be a couple little babies because I can hear them squealing.
So another rough crossing to the McMillan Group, of course. So the McMillan campsite.
McMillan Group campsite. Beautiful.
But on high tide, this is what you have, right? This is at low tide. So it's beautiful. Everything is beautiful at low tide. Everything.
Oh, I don't know, I saw some ugly curries at low tide, but... And here's another, what we always liked, and many times we could find it, is where there would be some trails to the other side of the island. So you'd have morning and evening sun, or be able to explore a bit. And that's what really added to the trip.
Yeah, really tough conditions. All right, so now we're crossing from McMillan to the Goose Group. It's another crossing that could be very, very difficult.
Crossing from the Macmillan Group to the Goose Island. What else to say about the sea states? No wind, super calm again. What a lucky day again.
That's it. Like it was like this the whole trip. So we did the outside of the Goose. We paddled on the and the water is beautiful. Even in the book, it says the water is
The blue,
blue.
the aquamarine, and just beautiful.
So when you come to the Goose Group, on that beach, there's a rediscovery camp for First Nations. So we met a bunch of kids there that were boated there for the day, and they're going to be picked up the next day.
And they're in the middle of doing fixing up the cabins that they have there. Some are in much more need repair than others, and that one was on the to-do list.
We are floating our boats between Goose and the Gooseling Islands. We just made it through at low tide, but we have enough water to float the boats.
So yeah, so we knew the tide was a high low tide, and on the charts it's green, 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 but we had just enough to be able to float the boat and go to the Gosling campsite, which is the far end on the right side. That's what it is.
We had a down day, and it was a planning day. It was, what are we going, where are we going, and what are we doing next?
All right, so
8:30 a.m. crossing from Goose Island to the Simon Group.
yeah, very rough conditions. That was a 6-mile crossing. So Cultus campsite is one of the campsites that group uses from Bella Bella, or they got dumped there. So we arrived there was nobody. That was great. Nobody says yes. No sharing campsite. It was awesome. We landed there and poof.
We said, where are the people? At 4 o'clock, we found the people.
But it wasn't enough room for everybody, thank God.
Yeah, there was a group of 8. They were doing a guided trip. Well, 8 boats. Yeah. And there was another trail through to the other side that we knew then what we were doing after dinner.
Then from there you go around Spider Island. You can go on the inside, but if you go on the outside, it's a very, really nice purple rock shore.
Yeah, there's purple bluffs further south, and all along this shoreline there's some beautiful the rock formations and the color, the blue with the lighting's on the right side, angles. And I just thought this was just phenomenal, and it was fun, lively, and there was some action in the water. So I was finally happy.
Serpent Camp. So that's the last campsite, or kind of the last one before going to Calvert Island. So beautiful place, and we had to have a down day. Mother Nature says, you're not leaving that day.
Yeah, this was a weather day, and Mother Nature reminded us that, not to be too slack about this. We were setting up, and a squall came in as we were setting up, so we just got drenched for like a half an hour, and it was just, in the middle of it. So the next day, the winds were still blowing. It was dry, on and off. We spent most of our time in the tent, just chilling. And what else do you do on a down day, but?
Whoop. That's it. Hold on, we're getting there. Need a romantic video.
So yeah, very early morning, and this was great because then we didn't have to carry our boats too far. The tide was up high, and we carried on down.
Going down to south end, another
Crossing Hakai Passage to Calvert Island. No wind, a little bit of swell. It is 9 a.m. It's pretty cool.
You notice in his voice, he's sounding a little, another crossing, another day.
So Calvert, we can spend an hour just talking about that place, the beaches, the trails, the Akai Institute. You can spend we spent 4 days there, just chilling out and exploring because we could, right? So it's a beautiful place. You can just go there and come home and you'd be happy.
So we actually did have four days there. We did beach combing, playing around, just entertaining ourselves, walking every day to the Institute, and there was an inland bog, beautiful, and there's a connection of beaches, so you can go to several beaches through it, and the actual park is here. I think everybody should have that sign. We were able to smell the roses. It was the setup of the Institute here. And there were people. We just never saw any other kayakers. So, other boats. And this picture, we've got all the different North Beach. We were on the North Beach. You can hike to the west and then carried on down. So one of our days, we did all the beaches, walking through here. Wonderful spot. And as Yves said, you could spend a week easy. We did spend a few because of weather day, but we planned to spend at least 2 or 3 anyways. So what a great place to be stuck. And there's water. So, bonus.
So we walk the beaches, follow the trails, it's well marked, and you can go on top. There's a summit trail. Just a beautiful place to hang out. More beaches. So, we were camping on North Beach, and the water is at the Aquin, which is a 2.5 kilometer walk. So walking with a 10-liter dromedary bag is tough, so we find a way to make it easier. We just put it in an IKEA bag and carry it with the sticks, which made our life way easier because every time we needed water, we had to walk 2.5 one way, 2.5 the other way, which is a 5-kilometer walk there and back to the campsite.
But it gave us something else to do. So this is one morning at 9 a.m.
That's the third wolf running down the beach.
Just ignored us, not even looked, and we were not that far from the exit sign, maybe further down. We just didn't care. I know.
Yeah, and I usually get up and do an early morning walk on my own. I was really glad this morning I didn't get up because the direction of where they came from was the direction is where I've been wandering.
This is how close they were from Panasonic.
Is outside Calvert?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was
just leaving the North Beach on the outside, yeah.
yeah. We saw quite a few sea lions. That was our biggest wildlife until we got to the second half of the trip. Then we started seeing whales, but we didn't see any whales until that first whale just before Shearwater.
So Bolivar, you can stay there, but it's going to be surf landing.
And this is still all along Calvert. So we're looking for a 2-day weather window to paddle down the outside of Calvert. And we were getting maybe one, and it was iffy back and forth. So we ended up staying four days in the north, and we were now doing a counting of our food, because we were looking at the weather and forecast, and it said if we don't go soon, if we don't go the next day, we might be stuck here for another 3 until Wednesday. And so we were for the first time looking at our food rations, only because we would have been over a week at Calvert. So we got up early and we went at 4 a.m. We made the call. Okay, we have a good weather window. It was for the full day. The second day was sort of iffy. We got on the water and we did at that beach that Yves showed. Could have been where we stopped. It was around 4:30. The sea state, the winds, the currents were in our favor. So at 5:36, we decided to do the evening crossing to Cranston Point, and this was our biggest day of 31 miles.
But we knew something was coming for weather-wise, so we could have stayed there at Grief Point at the bottom of Calvert, or keep going where we knew that there was a cabin. So we made it to Cranston, 8 p.m. Great cabin, very nice facilities.
And it doesn't take us long to get settled in, take a look at all the gear.
And there was nobody there too. So we got bunk beds, a nice fireplace.
It was in really good shape, and we were very happy to. So this is the second day. We knew the weather was coming. We just didn't know when. While that was on the beach, an hour later, this is what we saw.
Storm coming in, it's hailing, heavy rain, thunder. It just came very quick like a freight train. Listen to that.
And we are so glad we are inside this cabin. Thank you, the people who built it.
I wouldn't want to be under a tarp for that. So that's why we decided to go across and made it to Cranston. So that was a long day, but it really worth the effort.
And there's the, after the storm where we were, just overlooking the other side of the bay. And when it rains, you get water. So we usually have a little bit bigger cockpit cover, and we can usually get 5 liters of water from each cockpit. Perfect. So we decided we would paddle out to Table Island and out to Egg Island, explore the area. And we asked the lighthouse keeper about stopping for a visit, and he said, if you can land, I'm not too sure where you would. So he kind of directed us, if you do this back in front, to this one where the logs are, but not at the tide level. If it was a really high tide, we might have been able to fit in through there. And now we're making our way for a setup for Cape Caution. Indian Cove we were great. It was good with the conditions. I wandered London Bay on my own, forgetting that we are now in grizzly country. We've been, not worrying about them so much. And we got up in the morning. It was a great day to go around
Here we are
Cape
on
Caution.
day 40 of our trip.
That's day 40.
July 26th at 7 a.m. And we are going around Cape Caution. Our conditions are darn favorable. We have a little bit of swell, light wind, and so far it looks good.
Are you on a flood?
On a net.
On that.
Sorry, on a flood, correct. On a flood, yeah. Yeah, we timed it to be there on the flood. So we were so close, it was no issue at all.
Yeah, that's right.
And famous Burnett Bay, we landed there, and there are cabins there on North Burnett Bay. We decided to go down south because it's a place we've been before. I set up the campsite, and then this happened.
Oh my.
ourselves, this is awesome, and then, we're like, what?
We found out why they were there.
That's gonna be a very expensive 50th for Justin. Because I talked to one of the helicopter pilots, it's $2,500 an hour. Yeah. For one helicopter.
Oh, and with the first helicopter that came, Yves said it came around and then it kind of swooped over and whatever, and it was going down by the river. Yves yells, "It's going to crash!" And my heart, like, we were, oh my God, and we went. Then we never heard anything, and then we found out what they were doing, but he came in so low, we thought it was crashing. So now we're going around, we get fog, this is one of our biggest fog days, and we had it all along the coast till we got close to, a good 2-3 hours we navigated in the fog, and making our way. This was a pit stop. Yves loves cabins. We go check out these cabins again. It was an existing...
It's an old, well, research station.
Yeah, and the neat thing about this that we found out is they're actually doing some new,
Built a brand new toilet.
renovations or revitalization to the area, which was very positive because some of it was getting quite run down. And our last night of our trip, and we shared it with a few people. These two, they're a father and son from Cornwall, and they were paddling from Haines, Alaska to Victoria, 4 months.
His dad's a doctor, retired, and he asked his son if he wants to do a trip with him. And he said they do some research, and our coast is the longest paddling coast in the world that you can do in one go. So he said, why don't we do that?
So they did it.
Once again, crossing from Shelter Bay to the mainland, or where sea conditions are very tough, as you can see.
From the mainland to Port Arthur. And these guys, they didn't have a GPS, and they were really concerned about the fog. So they said, would you mind if we join you, if we cross over? And they knew we knew the area. So we did our last day with these guys, and they were very, very lovely.
And that's it.
And we made it home. That's it, thanks.
Any questions? No? Everyone wants to do it? Yep.
What did you do for weather forecast?
What did we do for weather forecast? The marine radio. That's it. So listening to the forecast every day, the short term, the long term, the weather statement, and we'll make a decision according to that. Yep.
You mentioned potential issues with water and stuff that you have.
Oh, yes. The first part, no issues with finding water. And I say the first part was up to Shearwater, even though it wasn't drier conditions. And after Shearwater, we didn't have trouble, but we had to look, and we didn't think that would be an issue. But we were in there in dry conditions. It hadn't rained. No, not much at all. So water became an issue, which we would have never considered in this part of the world.
If Akai didn't have any water, would have been in trouble. Yeah. Another question?
At the back.
Yep.
Were you able to forage or purchase any fresh food?
We could have at Shearwater. Bella Bella was closed. The store was closed. Shearwater didn't have much. But we had our food drop off with everything we needed. So the answer is in the middle. We did not, no.
And when you say fresh food, fish.
Yeah.
We fished. Well, Etienne fished.
You didn't forage any vegetables or seaweed?
No,
No.
I'm not at that level.
I do sometimes, but we didn't this trip.
Yep.
What did you do with Etienne's kayak?
So Etienne, when he knew that he had to come, he paddled to Bella Bella Ferry, put the boat in the ferry, got to Port Hardy, got a ride to the hostel, grabbed the van because he had the keys,
Our van.
grabbed my van, drove back to the ferry, got the kayak, drove to Victoria, packed up his stuff, drove the van back to Port Hardy because we needed it, and hitchhiked to Vancouver.
Because the kayak he had was ours, so it needed to end up back at our house.
Took him 6 days to get to Montreal. Yeah. Yeah.
I noticed you had helmets on the back of your kayaks.
Yeah. If the going gets tough on the West Coast or surf landing, we're going to put the helmets on. Yeah.
I actually wore my surf helmet once. I went, the day of the helicopters, I went and I played in the surf.
Question? That's it? Well, yeah.
What kind of boats did you three use?
Okay, Patti and I have the Wilderness Tempest. She has the 17, I have the 18 fiberglass. And Etienne had a current design Storm plastic 17 foot. We both have skeg boats. And Patti and I can together to stack 30 days of food in our boats. There's not enough room to left for anything after that.
Has Etienne done any other kayaking other than your Brooks trip?
No,
No whitewater stuff?
no.
He's a canoeist and an outdoor guy, so he's very good on land. And when he came to Victoria 5 years ago, Yves put him through a very fast-forward kayaking course, including he rolled the first day he tried, and he did currents. We had him out, so we weren't concerned about his skill at all. But on day 3, when we had that rough
Oh,
stuff,
yeah, what did he tell you?
he actually said, if it's going to continue like this,
I'm out.
I'm out. So that's when we realized, and I looked at him and said, wasn't this a great day? Wasn't it fun? And it was, then he goes, I think we might have to tone it down a bit for him. But as it turned out, Mother Nature did.
So Etienne is the kind of guy, when he came to Victoria 5 years ago, I took him over Discovery, just paddle. Come back to Cadbro Bay, he says, show me how to roll. Wow, you know, you've been in the kayak 3 hours, you can't show you how to roll. So every step of rolling, he never missed a step. 7 minutes, he rolls. Okay? So before the trip to the Brooks, I had a level 1 Paddle Canada, so I put him in that course. And then he's rolling, so don't be cocky, try to roll on the other side. He went over, roll on the other side, came up. So that's fast learner he is. So there was no issues for him, like, yeah. So that's the kind of, anyway. Yep.
He's a big guy. How tall he is?
Yeah, he's 6'3". Long and skinny and fast. He was waiting for us.
Fast, strong, very graceful.
But, you know, we had him as a backup. Any other question before we end that presentation? All's good? Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
It was great to see you there. So Patti told me, I said to Patti, I says, we should do that again. She says, no, we'll never have those conditions again. Never, never.
Great pictures, great presentation, and what a wonderful adventure. But it's now my understanding that if anybody in the audience tonight goes up there and they don't have the same conditions that these guys had, do you want them to call you? Is that how it's going to work?
People take our holidays according to our time off.
Okay.
So when are you going on holiday this summer? Okay, then I'll take those days to go on my holiday.
So I want to present you with the much sought after, wonderful Siska mug. So you guys hopefully should have a nice collection by now.
That's our second.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Well, thank you very much.
Before everybody takes off, I just want to talk a little bit about what we've got coming up, okay? In March, we've got Alan and his friends talking about, he's going to take us on a bike journey up to the Yukon, which I'm really looking forward to hearing about. In April, we've got David Norwell, who's the author of A Complex Coast, coming to talk to us. And if you haven't read that book, you've got to go get it, because it's certainly a good read. In May, just the other night, I met Doug Simon, who's the owner of Feathercraft Kayaks that used to be located in Vancouver. The company is no longer making boats, but he lives in Fairfield. So he's going to come to us and talk about the history of Feathercraft and the story of the company and what happened. Okay. In September, so nobody's going to be here in the summer because we're all going to be out paddling on the Central Coast. In September, I've got Dr. Gordon Gishbridge, He's a professor at the University of Manitoba. His nickname is Dr. Icicle. And he's going to be doing a 2-day workshop here in Victoria on cold water immersion. I caught a presentation that he did for Scout BC, and I certainly learned a lot about cold water immersion. I thought I knew a fair bit about it. So he's going to be doing a presentation the night before the course starts, and we're going to be doing some advertising for him. So I think that would be a really interesting talk. In October, if the people are around, I know there's a couple of people in the audience, Ocean River had Frank Wolf, who kayaked around Labrador Peninsula with JF and Justine, do a presentation there. Well, he's agreed verbally. I'm still waiting for it to get it confirmed in writing to come back in October and do the same presentation for us. And that's a real adventure. I mean, their biggest issue was polar bears. And they had a couple of scary incidents. In November, I've got Matt Fairburn. He's the chief warden at Tri Island Ecological Reserve, and he's a good friend of Jacques Charest, and he's going to be coming and talking about Tri Island. I have been trying to get somebody for years to come and talk about Tri Island. We paddle by there all the time, and it's got a really interesting history. And then next winter, I don't know if any of you on Facebook have been following what Elizabeth Purden's been doing down as she's trying again to get to Antarctica, but that's a really interesting story. So I hope that we can get her next winter and come and talk about her trip down there. So that's what we've got lined up for the next 6 months. So I think it's an outstanding show. Thank you all for coming tonight. BJ, do you have anything you want to add? Okay. Drive safe, paddle safe. See you next month.